Hello everyone. In this session, I am going to talk about metaphysical poetry with reference to John Donne's poem. As we all know, John Donne is considered as the father of metaphysical poetry. So let me give you a brief introduction regarding metaphysical poetry. Metaphysical poetry is a group of poems that share common characteristics. They are all highly intellectualized, use rather strange imagery, use frequent paradox, and contain extremely complicated thought. Literary critic and poet Samuel Johnson, he is the one who first coined the term metaphysical poetry in his book Lives of the Most Eminent English Poets who lived between 1179 and 1781. In this book, Samuel Johnson wrote about a group of 17th century British poets, I mean to say English poets, that included John Donne, George Herbert, Richard Crashaw, Andrew Marvell, and Henry Vaughan. He noted that how these poets they shared many common characteristics, especially ones of wit and elaborate poetic style. And when I tell you about, or when I coin this phrase metaphysical, so many questions arise in our mind. What does metaphysical means? Let us see what is the etymological background of this word. And what does metaphysical mean? The word meta means beyond or after. Okay, so the literal translation of metaphysical is beyond the physical world or after the physical world. Basically, metaphysical poetry deals with the questions that cannot be explained by science. It questions the nature of reality in a philosophical way. If you have gone through Jordan's poems or Herbert poems, and even, for example, Marvel poems, you can understand how their poetry is completely different from romantic poetry. Here are some common metaphysical questions. Does God exist? See, these are the questions they pose in their, these poets pose in their poetry. Does God exist? Is there a difference between the way things appear to us and the way they really are? And essentially, what is the difference between the reality, means real world, and the perception, and the illusionary world? So, is everything that happens already predetermined? If so, then when is free choice non existent? So, is conscious limited to the brain? Metaphysics can cover a broad range of topics from religious to consciousness, from real to perceptionary world, okay, or imaginary world. However, all the questions about metaphysics or metaphysical poetry ponder around the nature of reality. And of course, there is no one correct answers to any of these questions. And metaphysics is about exploration and philosophy, not about science and maths. Okay, let us see the characteristics of metaphysical poetry. The group of metaphysical poets that I have mentioned just now earlier is obviously not only the poets or philosophers or writers that deal with metaphysical questions. There are other more specific characteristics that prompted Johnson to place the 17th century English poets together. Okay, a group of the poets just now I have mentioned that John Donne, Herbert, Croshaw, and Andrew Marvell, and even Henry Vaughan. So these are the common characteristic features of their poems, which made Samuel Johnson to put these poets together. Perhaps the most common characteristics is that metaphysical poetry contained large doses of wit. Wit means, intellectuality. Okay. In fact, although the poets were examining serious questions about the existence of God, just now I have mentioned, or whether a human could possibly perceive the world, the poets were sure to ponder those human could possibly perceive the world, and the poets were sure to ponder those questions with humor. Okay, wit and humor, how we could able to see in the place of comedy of manners, and in this poetry we can also see the same wit and humor. So metaphysical poetry also thought that they also sought to shock the reader and to wake him or her up from his or her normal existence in order to question the unquestionable things. The poetry often makes ordinary speech with paradoxes and puns. Puns means it's play of words. And these metaphysical poets, they know how to play with words. So, being literature student, you should know all these literary terms because you are all in post graduation course, right? So, the results were strange, comparing unlikely things such as lovers to a compass, where you can able to see in Andrew Marvel's poem where he compares lovers to a pair of compasses, or the soul to a drop of dew. And these weird comparisons were called conceits. And if you are studying metaphysical poetry, you should know these are conceits, paradoxes, hyperbole, okay, wit, and humor. These are the common characteristics of this metaphysical poetry. And metaphysical poetry, it also explored a few common themes and they all had a religious sentiment. In addition, many of the poems explored the theme of carpe diem. I think you might be thorough with this term. Carpe diem means seize the day, and investigated the humanity of life. One great way to analyze metaphysical poetry is to consider how the poems are about both thought and feelings. And you should understand metaphysical poetry is not only about feelings or expressions or some imaginary world. But metaphysical poetry it deals with thought and feelings. Got it? So think about it. How could you possibly write a poem about the existence of God? And if you didn't have some emotional reactions to such an enormous, this is somewhat like life altering questions. So it is how these poets have written this poetry is a biggest thing. Okay, and the metaphysical poetry investigates the relationship between rational, logical argument on the one hand and intuition or mysticism on the other hand. So we can say that this metaphysical poetry uh, may be the blend of both religious and okay and imaginary things. So this deals with rationality and logical argument on the one hand and the intuition or mysticism especially on the other. So often depicted with sensuous detail, metaphysical poetry is considered highly ambiguous due to high intellect and knowledge of metaphysical poets. So, let me tell you what are the devices used in metaphysical poetry by these poets. Metaphysical poets like John Donne, since I am dealing with the John Donne in this session, and I'll take example from his poems. Metaphysical poets like John Donne, he uses complex dramatic expressions and a variety of literary devices like extended conceits. Okay, conceit, what do you mean by conceits? Conceit, in order to put it in simple term, conceits are the far-fetched images. You know the meaning of images and symbolism, right? Because you might have studied in in your UG undergraduation level. So he uses the extended conceits, paradoxes, and imagery in colloquial and personal language. You know the meaning of colloquial, right? Very simple language, regional language, or native language, we can say. Colloquial and personal language that challenges ideas of morality, traditional love, and carnality. And it is intellectually inventive, even jarring sometimes, because it mixes and links two unlike things to create extended metaphors and anecdotes that is unique in comparison to previous poets of his era, particularly Edmund Spenser. You might be thorough with the great poet and the philosopher like Edmund Spenser. So, metaphysical conceits are of central importance since I have mentioned these concepts, and I'll give you just I just try to brief these concepts or what are these metaphysical conceits are. Metaphysical conceits are of central importance in metaphysical poetry, and these are the terms or devices, literary devices used almost all of by metaphysical poetry, poets. So, a metaphysical conceit is usually classified as a subtype of metaphor, an elaborate and strikingly unconventional or supposedly far fetched metaphor. Okay, or far-fetched metaphor or hyperbole, contradiction, simile, paradox, or oxymoron, causing a shock to the reader by an obvious dissimilarity and distance between or stunning incompatibility of the objects compared. And one of the most famous conceits in John Donne's poems is that he uses, I told you, two lovers to a compass, a pair of compass, especially legs of compass. And in that, especially his poem entitled A Valediction Forbidding Mourning, where John Donne compares two lovers in love, who are both of them were in love, to the points on a geometer's, okay, that compass. And John Donne, especially in this semester, you are supposed to read four of John Donne's poems. So I'll try to um, give you a synopsis, or what I can say, some briefing about all these poems, because you should be thorough with these poems. These are the important poems by John Donne. Let me start with his poem entitled Good Morrow. John Donne, this poem, especially the Good Morrow, after careful analysis of this poem, which decides after careful analyzing the features of metaphysical poetry, he started writing this poem, The Good Morrow. In this poem, he compares his former life with present and concludes that present life is better than the previous one. Okay, hope you are following me. Through arguments, he substantiate his stance. Therefore, whole poem is based on arguments. And this is a short poem. He also quotes some examples from the past, okay, and in order to explain present life. So mostly they belong to myth, and this poet John Donne links these examples with his own life. It seems that he is trying to prove something. Perhaps he wants to prove the superiority of love over other material things of life. Just imagine whatever he is saying might be true, even to this, that is relevant even to this era, though we are living in 21st century. These poets, these are the English poets, they belong to 17th century. Okay, so it is one of the major characteristics of John Donne's poetry that he considers love is the greatest thing in the whole world. Okay, and some critics, they also consider him as a love lyricist, like that, because all of his poem deals with love, and where he considered love is the greatest thing in the whole world. However, pleasure of love is dependent on the beloved, he says. Okay, according to Donne, he says that the pleasure of love is dependent on the beloved, and thinks that done one can only feel beauty of love if he has a loyal beloved. Loyal girl, beloved means, okay, one who is in love with them. So he says that if you really want to enjoy love, so it the pleasure of love is completely dependent on the what I can say, the taste of, or if there is a compatibility between both the lovers, then definitely you can enjoy the pleasure of love. So he says that if the beloved is, if you get a loyal beloved, then definitely you can feel the beauty of love. So in order to determine the beauty in Donne's love, let's, especially we should analyze this poem, The Good Morrow. So please go through this poem, and it is available in the internet, and even what we have provided you, the study materials, please refer and please go through this poem. This is a very simple and short and sweet one. So let me tell you the significance of the title, The Good Morrow. Okay, so while analyzing this poem, it seems to be deeper, and if we want to acknowledge the proper meaning of the good morrow, then it, as I have told you, that metaphysics means they write the poems which physically it seems something, but it is beyond the physical world. So beyond the actual meaning of the phrase. So generally, The same of the, especially the title of the poem, originates three meanings. One is the following day, the time following an event, or the near future. It also means a fresh morning. Good morrow means nothing but good morning, like that. This is since he belongs to the 17th century and he wanted to keep a title in a very catchy manner, so he might have kept this title, The Good Morrow. So if we combine all these meanings, then we come to the conclusion that John Donne is talking about the freshness which is present in his future life. And he just not only talks about it, but also he is hopeful about his upcoming life. Okay, we can see the, what we can say, the positive vibes or the hopefulness of the poet when we read the title itself. So previous life of John Donne was waste, but the present and future life are not the same. He wanted to make his present and future life much more fruitful than the previous, than his past. So another meaning which is derived from the good morrow is that the poet wants to forget his past life, right? So he wants to start his life afresh with a new, with a fresh ideas, or with a fresh and new things or new ideas. So it seems that he has awakened from a long sleep. Now he wants to start a fresh life or a new life with new passion and hope. So obviously, the John Donne in this poem is not only a poet but also a lover. Okay, when we go through these poems, this poem especially, we can understand that here the speaker is the poet himself. Is a speaker here, so he presents the poem not only as a poet but also a lover. As a lover, he expresses his gratitude towards the life which he currently is spending, and he, along with his beloved, laments his previous life. Before falling in love, they were leading a tasteless life. Okay, he is saying, he tries to say that before he fall in love, and he falls in love, he thinks that he was leading a tasteless life. Then they were unaware about the beauty of life and love, and which is only possible that if they have the power of love in their minds and in their hands. So he says that that's why he is not liking his past, and even he doesn't want to what remember his past days of their life, because which were rustic and childish, foolish. And then quotes the incident of seven sleepers of them. So these are the phrase from the poem, and this is a beautiful poem. As I have told you, please go through the poem, and you can enjoy the way he played with the words. So it is an incident from the myth, but is also mentioned in the Bible that seven persons took shelter in a cave. That's why he says that he uses the phrase like seven sleepers of death. Okay, they slept there for more than 200 years, because biblical version, he has taken this phrase from the Bible, where there is a story, a small story behind the seven sleepers. So they slept in a cave and they slept there for more than 200 years. But when they woke up, they did not realize the duration of their sleep. So thus they could not understand what happened to them in their during their sleep. Okay, so that's why the poet, he wants to, in the first stanza, he wanted to beautify the things, and he just recollect his past when he was not in love. And in this second stanza, there are three stanzas in this poem, and in the stanza of second stanza, he wanted to analyze his love towards his beloved, and how truly he loves her. And there is a sharp contrast between the world of love and the world of reality. These are the things he wanted to differentiate between. So although it is painful that the poet has changed his thinking, that when earlier he was recollecting that many people are attached to material things of life. Means everybody, of course, we are all behind power, position, money, everything. So even like the other people, like the other common people, even he was behind that. But later he realized that life is important, especially true love is important in anybody's life. So the poet has changed his thinking later, and he has wasted, and he started repenting and regretting for being wasted his previous life by being materialistic. So although it is painful, and the poet wants to forget it completely, as he wants to start his life afresh. Got it? And in the third stanza, there is an enchantment in this stanza, because while appreciating the beauty of his world of love, the poet talks about the unity and his face shine in the eyes of his beloved. Similarly, his beloved's faces shine in his eyes. That's why, let me quote some praise from this poem. My face in thine eyes, thine in mine appears, which means both of them they could able to see the true love in their eyes. Okay, and for each other. So the poet and his beloved had created a very beautiful, complete world from their love, and but there is no possibility of decay in it. Okay, you know the meaning of decay. So, although the poet talks about the spirituality of love, yet there are some references and images which are from the myth. Some examples of images he used in these poems are hemisphere, geographical world, discoverers, and seven sleepers of den. Because I told you he had taken this phrase from Bible, okay, and room, so many things, etc. Done has variety of images. Every poem has a different type of imagery, because I told you that metaphysical poetry is known for its unique images and symbolism and literary devices. So, moreover, Donne, especially John Donne, has variety of images in his poem. Every poem differs from another poem, other poem. Okay, so in terms of imagery, so moreover, Donne's imagery is not at all imaginative, but nor is it supernatural. And he exemplifies his point of view from real life examples, for instance, maps, rooms, and seas. These are known to everyone, but his creativity lies in the way he makes use of these imagery. So, thus, imagery of John Donne is simple but beautiful and yet forceful. And the next poem, which is prescribed for you this year, is The Canonization. The Canonization is also written by John Donne. Okay. In this poem, John Donne, as a person, and he is the speaker, he himself is the speaker, he speculates upon the prospect of his being canonized. Okay, he is using the term in the religious sense. You know the meaning of canonized, and please, all of you should get back to your dictionary once I finish my lecture, and you hope all of you might have your dictionary. So, of course, but mischievously by implying that he and his lover will be elevated to the level of saints. Okay, canonized means, you know the meaning of canonized, like being made as a saints. Okay, so because they love as they do, he is being playful and witty and just a shade blasphemous. From the beginning, the tune is provocative. Just I will read out a few lines from this poem. He writes like this: For God's sake, hold your tongue and let me love, or chide my fancy or my coat, my 5 grey hairs, or rude fortune, flout with wealth your taste, your mind with arts improve, or the king's real or his stamped face contemplate. What you will approve, so you will let me love. So when you go through this poem or when you go through these lines, you just cannot understand by one reading. And again you have to read. So this poem, which takes a theological term for its title, the canonization, where he brings in theology, okay, that of Bible, mythology, everything he brings in his poems. And this poem particularly, and where he uses the theological term, the title, the canonization, and then he begins with a blasphemy, for God's sake. Okay. Mm, which is clearly playing a number of ironic games. One second. Ironic games, and where dramatically. especially the readers, they should and they can understand how dramatically the speaker appears exasperated at being continually reprimanded for his amorous life, and so here he responds not only by apologizing for it, but rather by mischievously pleading for the social world and at large to permit love to exist in some small corner of its realm, devalued and frowned upon uh, through what I can say, through it to be. So for this is a world where that values everything above love, which is a world of affairs in every sense but the romantic. Nevertheless, the speaker is able to imply that this system of value is questionable, for this world of affairs is clearly one of psychophonic cupidity and high hypocrisy. So, with wealth your state, he uses, with wealth your state, your mind with arts improve. Okay, with wealth your state, your mind with arts improve. I take you a course. This is how the speaker advises his captious friend, but for what purpose? And get you on a place for the purpose of self-aggrandizement, or what we can say, for which one must fawn upon the great, observe his honor or his grace. So flatter a judge or a bishop, for these are men who can offer patronage to their sycophants. So most of all, fawn upon the monarch or the king's real or his stamped face I contemplate, admire and to be seen to admire the king, or what you really want, gaze upon money or going behind the bar position, the king's stamped face. You know the meaning of stamped face, okay? The king's stamped face, which is your real object of desire. So in the previous poem, he was talking about how love is important in their life. In the present poem, in the canonization, he has become a bit philosophical and theological, where he tries to speak about how the people who are in bars, they misuse their what cover or position, and how their life should be sometimes to an extent is critical. So the theme here is plainly satirical, and it has had sufficient sting to silence the listener. And since the speaker is not obliged to order him to hold his tongue again, he is attacking the present society, where how on the one hand he is talking about the king, okay, and how his stamped face, which shows the real object of desire, how he is so much of ambitious, okay. So consequently, he takes the opportunity to develop the satire in stanza 2, the love of power. In the beginning, he talks about how the people, those who are in power, they misuse us and they cannot able to lead a common life or a natural life or a real life like common people. In the second stanza, now he is talking about how the power of love is important, okay, and how the love of wealth or the power or the love of power, the love of military or judicial conquest, this he implies is the kind of love abroad in this world. So he is saying, he tries to put in his own terms that love is everything, and if there is a true love, then definitely, and it can take over and it wins over everything: power, position, wealth, judiciary world or military, everything. So the speaker's irony shows itself in his adoption of a tone of resigned agreement about this state of affairs, as much as to say, and where he says that, yes, I see your point, greed and envy, and power for its own sake. And these are extremely important things. They motivate this society, and not only the society of 17th century and even now. And so they should be valued as you and this and as the society at large do value them. Of course, we should value, right? So, but at least my he says, at least my romantic love does not materially interfere with them. And he says that I love her. But greed and envy and love of gain and exploitation still thrive. So why should you complain? This is how he says. He says that I love her, but greed and envy and love of gain and exploitation still thrive. So why should you complain? The irony is very heavy indeed in stanza 2, where the harmless rapporteur of the lover sighs and tears and colds and heats and so on. And familiar from the courtly love tradition is sarcastically played off against the realities of a vulgar, mean, and exploitative world. And he just wants to bring the difference between how the physical world is completely different from your world of love, that is the metaphysical world. So, hope I made myself clear by giving you a brief introduction regarding this poem Canonization. So, Canonization is a famous poem by John Donne where he aspires to make his love for his beloved divine and immortal, so as to be declared as saints in the religion. And he says that if he is in love and he is like a saint, so one should love like a saint. There is no dubious things, and there should not be any greedy, and there should not be any envious between people. So he declared himself and his love beloved as a saints in the religion of love. So the term canonization means the formal process through which one is declared a saint. And now let's look at the stanza wise. How I told you that analysis of the poem. This poem, like any other metaphysical poem, has a dramatic opening, and all metaphysical poems they begin abruptly, dramatically. Okay, so this poem, like other metaphysical poems, has a dramatic opening. The speaker is found to command another companion besides his beloved. The speaker is found to command another companion, besides his what I can say, that he argues and he command another companion besides his beloved to stop bothering about them. The speaker argues that his love has not affected his companion's life adversely. So, okay, and so he should be allowed to love his beloved without any hindrances from his side. The speaker pleads his companion to remain silent while he involves in an emotional dialogue with his beloved, and he offers his companions to make fun of or chide his palsy or his go-to ailments occurring during old age. And he also suggests him that her that he might as well make fun of his gray hair or his misfortune while upgrading his own position, okay, with wealth, name, fame, and refine his mind by involving in different sorts of different kinds of arts. And he suggests his companion, his beloved, to pursue an academic career by seeking different disciplines and getting a course or pay homage to the king, and either his self or his replica stamped on his currency. So, in the last line of the stanza, where the speaker says that he might do whatever, okay, he pleases to do, and he leave him and his beloved on their own. Because in this stanza, where the speaker engages in a series of silent contemplations as to what could have been affected by their love, and he wonders as to who could have been harmed by their love. And he says that a true love, it doesn't harm, neither hurts, nor spoils his beloved's life. So he says that because he is a true lover, and he doesn't like, or he doesn't want his beloved to be harmed by his true love. So he instead he motivates her or encourages her to continue on her academic career, pursue her academic career, and he asks her to write something and learn all kinds of arts. So he begins with a series of questions trying to come to a solution, where he asks whether his sigh or tears that he had shared silently in love had drowned any mercantile ship and caused someone's loss. So he says that he doesn't want to hurt, hurt the feelings of his beloved. And he inquires whether the heat of passion that fills his veins ever caused the epidemic of plague or to break out. See, the tone of satire here, and we can, that's what I told you, that somewhere, sometimes he may be attacking the physical world, and sometimes he just be a normal person, and he behaves like as though he is one among the common people. So he inquires whether the heat of passion that fills his vein can cause an epidemic of plague to break out. So it was believed that the Great Plague of London, okay, or the bubonic plague was caused because of the considerable warm weather that year. Right? So he is there because here he is comparing his heat of emotions to that of causing what reason for causing the great epidemic of plague in London. So it caused the rats aboard a ship to come out and litter the streets of London. Got it? So they carried with them the germ of plague and spread it across the land. See, these are the images or symbols um, he brings in, to explain his true love. And what I can say that his love is not, though he is an ardent lover, he doesn't want to hurt or harm his beloved's privacy and her life and her feelings. So, in the third stanza, the speaker discusses the strangeness of the nature of their love. The speaker suddenly becomes careless and announces that he is ready to be called by any name by others because he and his beloved are made thus by love. They are made to each other. Okay, he just says that I don't care, and he doesn't want to care for anybody, whatever they say, or they may call him that he has become crazy after his beloved. It doesn't mind. So he suggests himself to be called a fly and his beloved another. So they circle around with the insect-like attitude to perish in the candle flame. And he calls himself and his beloved the candle too. Okay, these are the images. So you can just first in this stanza he is comparing himself to fly and candle. Okay, and that melt with how the candle melt with the heat of their love. So he finds an eagle and a dove in them. Okay, again he is comparing himself and his beloved to that of an eagle and a dove. So both at the same time. The eagle represents the strength and masculinity. You know the meaning of, right? The eagle stands for strength and masculinity, while the dove is symbolic of, you know, feminine grace and meekness. Meekness, innocence. Okay, feminine grace and meekness. So here, who is eagle and who is dove? He himself is eagle, who represents the strength and masculinity, and a dove, which is some symbolic of feminine grace and meekness. And finally, he announces that they resemble the mysterious phoenix. Okay, you know the meaning of, you may be thorough with this image, phoenix, whose is itself a mystery, and it is believed to rise from its ashes. Phoenix bird, you know the meaning of phoenix bird, how it raised from its ashes after every 2000 years. So, but the speaker feels that their love is more mysterious than the riddles. Okay, that he compares his love and himself to that of phoenix because it raised from its ashes every 2000 years. So the speaker feels that their love is more mysterious than this bird phoenix. So than the riddles asked by the mythical phoenix. And like the phoenix, they die and rise again, like that. So while he tries to, and he wishes to compare himself and his beloved to phoenix, because even their love is also like the phoenix. They die and rise again and become strange and mysterious because of the love present between them. So in the fourth stanza, this poem, I think five stanzas we have. In the fourth stanza, the speaker discerns the possibilities of making their love immortal. Okay, he says that if he and his beloved cannot live their life in love, they cannot at least die. So, and if no proper burial to given to their bodies, followed by tombs and tears, and a song of lament sung at someone's death, then they would satisfy themselves with verses or poetry. So, if their love is not proved strong enough to be placed in history or in a chronicle, then they will find a place for their love in sonnet or at least any kind of poetry. So that's make their love immortal. He tries to make his love immortal. And he just wants to prove his love is immortal and his love is true. So he says that even though they die, at least their love should be alive. And it should be written in a form of a poetry. So just as an urn can contain the ashes of the dead instead of a half-acre land, so also will they find a place in hymns and everybody will come together to announce that they have been canonized for their love. Okay, so this is how he goes on explaining the value of or the kind of or quality of their love they are in. And thus, the speaker attributes a sense of sacredness and religiosity by calling themselves saints in love. So, the last stanza sums up all the apprehension of the speaker discussed in the previous four stanzas. The speaker announces in a positive tone that they would be remembered for their love by posterity. So people shall invoke them for their exemplary love. They would sing praises for the speaker and his beloved that their love was each other's, their love was each other's hermitage. Okay, such was the spirituality in their love. And he says that first he says he wants, just in a previous stanza, he wants his love to be immortality. Okay, immortal. And his love, he himself declares that he and his beloved, they are in immortal love. They are in spiritual love. And now he says that he is somewhat like a hermit. Okay, so such was the spirituality is there in their love. So people would regret that their love has none of the qualities of the love of the speaker and his beloved. So they would recall the peaceful nature of the speaker's love and would regret at their own love which has turned horrid. And their love was so grand that it made the soul and spirit of the world reduces into each other's eyes, especially the speakers and the beloveds, and like mirrors, they reflected each other's love. And the greatness of their love exemplified them as saints, and everybody begins to epitomize them. And countries, towns, and courts. This is how this is: countries, towns, and courts, and places of interest and importance now seek a design, a pattern of their love. So, what are the themes we could able to see in this poem? One is lovers as microcosm done incorporates the Renaissance notion of human body as a microcosm into his love poetry. And during the Renaissance, how many people believed that the microcosmic human body mirrored the macrocosmic philosophical world. Okay, and next the themes or the important central idea what we could able to see is that the Neoplatonic conception of love. And in this poem, we could able to see that Neoplatonic conception of love. Donne draws on the Neoplatonic conception of physical love and religious love as being two manifestation of the same influence. Okay, and the third important theme is that here he could also bring in that religiosity or the spirituality or spiritual enlightenment as a sexual ecstasy. Throughout this poem, especially the poetry of Donne imagines religious enlightenment as a form of sexual ecstasy. And he parallels the sense of fulfillment to be derived from religious worship to the pleasure derived from sexual activity. So, although his poems they seem profane, okay, though his poems were seem profane, their religious fervor. saves them from sacrilege or scandal. Got it? And filled with religious passion or spirituality, people have the potential to be as pleasurably stated as they are after sexual ecstasy. So we could also find that the search for the one true religion could also be seen or considered as the theme of this poem. In turn, speakers frequently wonder which religion to choose when confronted with so many churches that claim to be the one true religion. So the speaker of this holy sonnet asks Christ to explain which bride or church belongs to Christ. So neither poem forthrightly proposes one church as representing the true religion, but nor does either poem reject outrightly the notion of one true church or religion. So in this poem somewhere, as I told you, that we have biblical references and some theology has been brought out, okay, in this poem. So I think this poem is loaded with imagery, themes. So you should go through this poem, then definitely you can able to understand it. And let me move on to the next poem, A Valediction for Wedding Morning. And this is again one of the most quoted poems by um, scholars and critics. Here, the speaker opens with an image of good men dying quietly, softly urging their souls to leave their bodies. These virtuous deaths are so imperceptible that the dying man's friends disagree about whether or not the men have stopped breathing yet. So the speaker argues that he and his lover, I told you, love is the main theme or the central theme of most of John Donne's poetry. And again, here also we again, who is the speaker? The poet himself is the speaker, and he again talks about himself and his beloved. And here he argues that he and the lover, he is bidding farewell to which should take these deaths as a model and parts away silently. They should not give in to the temptation to weep and sigh excessively. So, natural earthly disturbances such as earthquakes, hurt, or and scale human beings, like how ordinary people notice these events happening and wonder what they mean. And however, the movements of the heavens, while being larger and more significant, go unnoticed by most people. And sometimes the speaker and his lover, we could find in this poem that, on the other hand, experience a more rare and special kind of control or a bond, sorry. And they can't even understand it themselves, but they are linked mentally. Okay, so what we can say later, he himself says that they are spiritually connected. Okay, certain of one other another on a non-physical plane. Because of this, it matters less to them when their bodies are apart. Though physically they are away, but mentally, spiritually, they are connected. So the souls of the lovers are unified by love. And again, what is the central theme of this poem? Love. Okay, he says that the souls of the lovers are unified by love, although the speaker must leave, their souls will not be broken apart. Instead, they will expand to cover the distance between them as fine metal expands when it is hammered. And this is also a concept. And how the the fine metal expands when it is hammered, even when these two lovers are apart, physically away from each other. Their souls are unified by the strong feeling or the superior or religious feeling called love. And if their souls are in fact individual, and they are nevertheless linked in the way the legs of a drawing compass are linked. I told you. And what is the well known and most familiar and conceit used by John Donne is a pair of compass. Okay, a legs are compass. How the legs of a drawing compass are linked, and he says that there the souls of two lovers are linked like this by the strong feeling called love. And the soul of the lover is like the stationary foot of the compass, and which does not appear to move itself, but actually does respond to the other foot's movement. So the stationary compass foot sits in the center, like how it is centered. One foot is centered of a paper when the other compass foot moves further away. So the stationary foot changes its angles to lean in that direction. So this is the what I can say the most familiar and well-known and very much quoted conceits by the great scholars, poets, and critics after John Donne. So the speaker's lover, and he argues that he will be like his stationary foot. He himself compares and tells that he himself is like some stationary foot, while he himself must travel a circuitous, indirect route. So her fixed position provides him with the stability to create a perfect circle, which ends exactly where it began, and bringing the speaker back to his lover after completing the circle. Then this is a very what I can say a simple poem, simple language has been used, and its themes also very simple, like love and distance. Okay, these are the themes he deals in this poem. This poem deals with. John Donne wrote this poem on the occasion of his separation from his wife Anne. There is also a background story behind this poem. Okay, so he wrote this poem on the occasion after his separation from his wife Anne. Okay, on diplomatic business, and the poem concerns what happens when two lovers have to part ways, and explains the spiritual unification, right? And that makes his particular parting essentially unimportant. So the speaker argues that separation should not matter to him because his lover has a genuine love towards beloved or each other. So, which that genuine love transcends physical distance. So, a valediction is a farewell. We all know valediction is a farewell. So, Dunn's title of the poem, however, explicitly prohibits grief about saying goodbye. Okay, hence the subtitle forbidding mourning, because the speaker and his lover are linked so strongly by spiritual bonds that their separation has little meaning and it doesn't matter to them at all. So, indeed, the speaker characterizes himself and his lover as inter assured of the mind. Got it? And these are the terms you should remember, you should keep in your mind, that his lover has a spiritual bonds and their separation has little meaning and doesn't matter for them, and he himself and his lover as inter assured of the mind. He calls themselves as, and John Donne, he created this compound word which combines the prefix inter, meaning mutually or reciprocally, okay, with assured meaning confident. Inter assured of the mind means spiritually assured, okay, like that. So the speaker here, he assures his lover that their souls are connected spiritually, and as well as their minds, and as well as their minds are also unified, and physical separation does not breach or break this bond. So instead their souls expand outward to cover the distance between them as a soft metal. How the soft metal is beaten to spread thinly over a large surface area. Okay, these are the two images he uses to convey their spiritual bonding, though they are separated. So the speaker introduces the most detailed simile in the poem when he compares the soul of himself and his lover to that of a legs of a drafting compass, as I have already mentioned. So finally, what I can say that the speaker asserts that this his lover will play the fixed foot to his moving foot, and one of the physical love versus spiritual love. This can also be considered as the theme, so another theme of this poem. How he tries to bring difference between physical world and physical love and spiritual love. The speaker of Donne's poem argues that visible grief at the lovers' parting would be a profanation of our joys. These are the terms you should be, as I have told you, that profanation of our joys. These are the phrases I have taken from the poem. So that is that to loudly mourn would belittle the love the couple shares by proclaiming it to the ordinary world. Yet, even as the poem urges a reliance on the power of spiritual connection in order to soften the pain of separation. Okay, so though they are physically away, but spiritually they are bonded together, okay, connected together or united together. So the speaker begins by describing the quiet death of virtuous men, and he uses no how quietly the virtuous men died. So these deaths are almost imperceptible as the men whisper to their souls to go. Okay, they just whisper to their souls to go, indicating their readiness for their death with the smallest possible sound. They actually stop because it is already too settled. So, by referring all these things, the speaker goes on to stress that how himself and his lover, in contrast, have a different have a strong connection of mind and soul, which makes okay, which that makes physical presence less important. And for them, love has been so much refined, and as they are in refined love, or they have their feelings are completely different, though they are physically away. And this love has been so much refined that it is beyond even their understanding. So what they can understand is the link between them. What is the link? That common feeling or the spiritual feeling love. So which goes beyond the ordinary romantic and sexual feeling. They are inter-assured of the mind. I told you, I have already mentioned this one. They are inter-assured of the mind, and so do not need their bodies to be near each other, although they no need to be together always and all the time, but they are connected spiritually, and they are connected with a strong spiritual bonding that is called love. So what are the symbols used in this poem? Spears and circles. Okay, and then how spears and these are the symbols he uses in stanza 3, where the speaker contrasts the movements of the earth with trepidation of the spears. Okay, only you can understand these symbols or symbolism or imagery only when you go through this poem. So please go through the poem, and I can able to complete 3 poems in this section. And Death Be Not Proud is also prescribed for you this semester. Please go through that poem where he talks about how he doesn't care for death, and the speaker directly addresses and he personifies the death. Okay, please go through that poem. And here in the just let me give you a brief summary of the poem Death Be Not Proud. The title of the last poem prescribed for you by John Donne is The Death Be Not Proud. And you may get the central idea of this poem by reading the title of the poem, Death Be Not Proud. What does he try to say? Here he directly addresses and personifies death and telling it not to be arrogant. And death, you should not feel proud. And you just because some people find death scary and intimidating, but some people they with a brave heart they accepts death. Okay, so the speaker he pities comes he says that comparing death to rest and sleep, and he compares death to rest and sleep, which are like images of death. The speaker anticipates death to be even more pleasurable than these activities. So furthermore, it's often the best people who go with death, which represents nothing more than the resting of the body and the arrival of the soul in afterlife. Because we Indians, we believe in rebirth, right? So he says that brave people, they believe in um, the life after death. So death is fully controlled by the fate and luck, and often administered by rulers or people acting desperately. The speaker points out that death is also associated with poison, war, and illness, right? And these are the 3 things which causes death. So drugs and magic spells are more effective than death. And when it comes to rest, with all this in his mind, what possible reason could death have for being so puffed up with pride? And death is nothing but a mere sleep, he says. And I am not scared. He says that death you should not be feel proud because I consider you as a mere sleep in between people's earthly lives and the eternal life, which means life after death. So in which death can visit them no more. And it is instead death or a certain idea of death as something to be scared of, and that is going to die. So, hope you have understood what I have delivered or spoken so far. And if you have any doubts, you can mail us and you can contact us. Thank you.